Welcome to Brainstoryum. I'm Anna Tizard, award-winning dreampunk and deeply weird fantasy author. And yes, that's me and my fiction that's deeply weird. Explore and imagine with me the most unexpected story ideas using the surrealist word game of Exquisite Corpse. Find out more and join in at annatizard.com. This is a storytelling challenge unlike anything you've tried before. Hello, imaginative people. I'm Anna Tizard and this is episode 66 of Brainstoryum. It is also the Halloween special. Listeners' words will be drawn from the legendary Socks of Destiny and mixed into weird writing prompts, which will end up making more sense than they have any right to. But being mindful of the spooky season, will I find ghoulish ideas creeping out from every crevice of the socks? Of course I will. Things seem to work out that way. Ideas seem to fulfil a need when you play a surrealist word game. I didn't invent it. I just follow the surrealist's lead and see what happens. And yes, today there will be another complete short story at the end, perfectly ghoulish and just in time for Halloween. So grab a blanket, grab a pen and be prepared for some shivers. But first, I'm excited to share with you the huge range of ideas which my highly imaginative listeners have sent in on the writing prompts from the last show. It was a bit of a busy show last time in episode 65 when I brainstormed stories from 5 exquisite corpses that had come up in a live in-person game in a pub near me. So I was kind of spoilt for choice and decided to open up the floor to ideas around 3 random word combinations, which were the velvet raven, the hesitant shoelace, and the revolting fortune teller, of course. Now, a very interesting and unexpected interpretation came from Margaret Homersham, who said the revolting fortune teller could be a person in a clan or secret society of fortune tellers who revolts. So it's that kind of revolting. It's like the peasants are revolting. That made me laugh. So clever. A fortune teller who's had enough of the way things are run. Maybe the rules are becoming lax and they're letting people join who don't actually have the gift but are really good tricksters. Or maybe the rules have become too rigid and things have swung that way. Either way, this has some great story potential. A revolt among not storytellers. God, can you imagine that? A revolt among storytellers. What would that be like? But no, this is a revolt among fortune tellers. Thank you for sharing your idea, Margaret. I had an idea come in about the velvet raven. Actually, I had a few of these. One from Patrick Towie said, I think it's a raven with a smooth, persuasive voice that talks people into doing the wrong thing. Now that's a really good premise. You could try this idea out on any number of different characters and see how they react, how easily persuaded they are, what it is they're being persuaded to do, and what are the consequences. Thank you, Patrick, for that idea. Jan Miklazovic said, the velvet raven is a cocktail, a potion of sorts, made only on Halloween. Nobody knows what goes into one, but good grief, does it make you scream. Now that could work for quite a twisted story about a Halloween party. I wonder, does the cocktail make you hallucinate or make you realise your worst fears? this could get pretty dark. Thank you for sharing your very inventive idea, Jan. And on the hesitant shoelace, I had a really funny one from the self-named village idiot. He said, right shoelace had an amorous attraction to left shoelace, but was hesitant about tying the knot. Ah. Bad things always happened in the past. That huge tumble down the mountainside from the last knotting up really thwarted Wright's confidence. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's quite sweet, really. A hesitant romance for an awkward shoelace. But they belong together, right? Thank you, village idiots. Although I feel quite hesitant myself to call you that, because this is pretty clever stuff. There were also a few folks who managed to combine all three writing prompts. Ryan Fiennes spoke of the velvet raven as a fortune teller. He said it visits Poe to try to tell him to demand more than $9 for his famous poem, The Raven. But Poe cannot understand the message it's trying to convey, hearing only its cawing, not its words. He writes his Raven poem based on this visitation, earning only $9. How very strange and clever. There's a kind of cyclical quality to this. It makes it feel kind of inevitable, the way folk tales sometimes feel utterly inevitable. Thank you, Ryan, for your very curious idea. Nick Vrakar said, her shoelace had untied itself again, but she was hesitant to touch it, not after dragging it through the dirty fairground trail. A voice croaked, care to hear your fortune? She looked over to see the thin man with the yellowed teeth, a velvet raven perched on his shoulder. I love how you've combined all three in one in a glimpse of a scene. This is actually... Doing this kind of thing is actually a method I've come across separately to Exquisite Corpse, but it's really one that's ideally suited to this. Just explore each image, just bring the images together and make it the opening of a story. Fantastic. Thank you, Nick. And finally, Ev Days, she gave a title of Raven Mind, in brackets, North Pole Workshop in the Velvet Shoe Department. Raven, an elf, befriends Lacey, an animated shoelace. Lacey helps Raven discover she is psychic. Lacey hesitantly agrees to join Raven as she travels the world, telling fortunes and seeking a cure for velvet tongue. Multi-olfactorial halitosis. You've just blown my mind, Ev. There's just so much going on here. Multi-olfactorial halitosis? So is that bad breath but with many smells? Is this a clue to where they've travelled, where they've been, where this is going? I don't know, but it's very colourful and different, and I like it. Well, I think it's time to delve once more into the strange pathways of suggestion and imagination. And the best way to begin is with the socks of destiny. That's right. And for those who haven't played before or listened to the show before, Exquisite Corpse is a surrealist word game which mixes words and phrases from various players into a sentence that goes describing word, noun, action, describing word, noun. So I am reaching into the describing word sock. What have we got here? This is from Wendy. Petulant is our first word. Who or what was petulant? We have a noun from Alessandro Bozzo. Glass of wine. A petulant glass of wine? It wants to be drunk and no one's touching it. Maybe. I'm just going to try for an action. This is from Paul Benfield. Searched the clouds for portents about. Ooh, quite a lot going on there. So let's try not to think ahead at this moment in time and just deal with each word that comes out. So this describing word is from Paul Thomas. Hexed. So someone's had a spell or a curse put on them. Now, final word to find out who is hexed is from Sean, also known as Blue Wizard Facts. Bride. Ooh, the hexed bride. That is curious. So I'm just going to read the entire Exquisite Corpse now. We have the petulant glass of wine. Searched the clouds for portents about. The hexed bride. Ooh. Searched the clouds for portents. If this is a literal glass of wine, clouds make me think of not clouds in the sky, but some substance that is clouding up the wine. Poison, maybe? Is this how the bride is hexed? We're at a wedding reception. People are milling around, chatting. Everything's very pleasant. The air is buoyant with the scent of flowers from every table. And something else. A tang of something unnameable. It's probably just this rich red wine being poured and repoured, and the pieces of cake being passed around, the black dried fruits glistening like tiny eyes under the chandeliers. But there's one glass of wine that's been left on the side, untouched. Why? Do people sense there's something not quite right about it? If this is a story of poisoning, who would want to kill the bride? Or just hex her? Maybe that's more interesting as a story, because then her story isn't over. You kill her off, it's more about the people she's left behind. Unless, of course, you turn her into a ghost or a zombie. Well, this is Halloween, the Halloween show after all. But I prefer a less obvious choice. It might just be because I want to be surprised. If I'm surprised, then my readers will get to experience some of that, because that will come through in my writing when I write it. What could this hex or spell be? Maybe she's possessed by someone that she was cruel to at school. Being almost the prettiest one in class, she took it upon herself to gang up on the real beauty and make her life a misery. And the real beauty's heart became twisted as she cowered from social gatherings and buried herself in books of dark magic, as twisted as her heart. And she became the most powerful and secretive witch that small town would ever know, if they ever found out. But looking at the whole Exquisite Corpse again, the petulant glass of wine searched the clouds for portents about the hexed bride. Maybe I can make a slightly different interpretation of this now that I've explored some initial ideas and characters. If the petulant glass of wine is searching the clouds for portents, and actual clouds, this feels more like the eye or inner eye of the witch intent on revenge, searching for ways to enact that revenge. But it's a given that the bride is hexed. Maybe she's already hexed without use of the wine, and the glass of wine is like a mini cauldron, a seeing device, which the witch peers into from a place of safety close by the reception party, but not so close as to risk being discovered. Her mission is to see, to understand what portents are at hand. Oh, I rhymed. Let me see if I can push that a little bit further. The bride back at school, she was so cruel. Everything now she tastes will be gruel. Every touch that means to care will only scratch and scar and scare. Ooh, that's rather Halloween. I think it's time for another Exquisite Corpse. Okay, our first describing word is from Fraser Armitage, the sci-fi writer. Delicious. I'm intrigued to see what may be delicious. This is from Mariah. Factory. A delicious factory? Or what's made inside it is delicious? Maybe. Let's try for an action. There's one that's just got caught on my finger here. It is from Paul Thomas. Devoured. Okay. A monstrous factory? If it can devour things. Okay, so the next word is from Sean, also known as Blue Wizard Facts. Slimy. Okay, something weird's going on here. And the final word is from Paul Benfield. Fir tree. Ooh. Okay, so the entire Exquisite Corpse is the delicious factory devoured the slimy fir tree. Okay, I think I'm going to need my green tea now, which has been brewing in the corner. Here we go. Oops. Okay, now this is going to inspire me, of course, because I know exactly why the delicious factory devoured the slimy fir tree. Oh, it's interesting that delicious and devoured have come up in the same Exquisite Corpse, both related to eating with gusto. And yet we have something that is definitely not food. A fir tree that's slimy. I feel like that must be something monstrous, the monstrous thing in all of this. And since this is the Halloween show, it kind of fits. Surely this is a sweet factory. Or, sorry, if you're from across the Atlantic, candy. All night the factory has been churning, sickly sweet smells billowing from its chimneys. Strange wisps of blues and greens, the occasional blast of scarlet, waft across the local park, each with its own perfume. Production is going haywire, and why wouldn't it? For soon it is to be All Hallows Eve, and there will be plenty of greedy mouths to feed, sticky little fingers pressing doorbells with tricks up their sleeves, but mostly a small plastic bucket for collecting sweets or candy. But we're not there yet. Glancing back across the whirling coloured mists in the park at midnight, what if the machines inside the factory get out of control and the sweets begin to pile up and pour out, a mountain of candy rolling down the hill? Children everywhere will blink awake in their beds, stirred by these addictive, mouth-watering smells. With robotic suddenness, they clamber out of their beds, climb out of windows, shimmy down drain pipes, tiptoe down fire escape steps, and rush towards the park. In the middle of the field stands the sweet master, candy cane in hand. Is this turning into some kind of Pied Piper type story? What does the sweet master want all these children for? I guess it depends how dark you want to go with this one. But let's just look back at the Exquisite Corpse, because I've kind of gone off tangent here. The delicious factory devoured the slimy fir tree. In the forest, a tree weeps a sticky black tar. Is it cursed? By whom? And why would a delicious factory devour it? Maybe, now that the children are all gathered, they are part of the factory, a living factory that only cares for sweetness. Their eyes wild with sugary desires. At the flourish and point of the sweet master's candy cane, they pile into the forest in a feeding frenzy, and they eat the tree that stands there, so sticky with maple-like slime. Ooh, something is not right here. Maybe the tree was once a person. This is how the sweet master punishes his enemies, by turning them into something else, whether it's a tree or a house or a statue, made of sugar and artificial flavourings. And then he conjures his army of enchanted children, and they finish off the job. Ooh, kind of ghoulish. I quite like that though. There's a certain atmosphere about it. And it's weird enough. Okay, time for a final Exquisite Corpse and a new story. Okay, let it be good. Let it be good. Our first describing word is from Wendy. Overcooked. Well, you'd think there's nothing horrifying about that, but it depends what it is that's overcooked. Brussels sprouts, maybe? Next word is from Paul Benfield. Train conductor. Methinks the train conductor has been using the sunbed a little bit too much. Or he or she has been on holiday, somewhere hot. Let's try for an action. This is from Rebecca Gleisner. Covers up. Ooh. Feels quite mysterious. The next word is from Paul Benfield. Crystalline. Covering up something crystalline. Last word is from Paul Thomas. Haha, zombie. Ooh, a crystalline zombie? But still, I mean, a great word for Halloween. Right, so the entire Exquisite Corpse is the overcooked train conductor covers up the crystalline zombie. Oh, what is a crystalline zombie? And how and why would a train conductor cover it up? Cover it up like a mystery, hiding the truth of it, the fact of it, from other train staff or passengers on the train, or covering it up literally with a sheet. But what would stop a zombie from clawing its way out again, tearing the sheet and groaning for brains? Then again, this is a crystalline zombie. Is it a crystal model or sculpture standing in a museum that twitches alive? But it's hard to marry that up with the meaning of zombie, which is surely someone who was once alive and is now undead, not just a sculpture. So what if we could be more creative with the word crystalline and say that this zombie can be controlled. A little, or just deflected using a special crystal. A powerful zombie deflecting crystal. Now that's a useful magical device if things get out of hand on Halloween. Or the crystalline zombie could be the zombie of all zombies, kind of like a master zombie. You think it's a statue, but it's something much more than that. It might be the original beast that infects the others. Ancient and full of the original power of the very first zombie, a zombie creating zombie. Maybe I just need the pause button to dive in and find out through the magic of discovery writing. The train rattled and jerked through the countryside. Teresa, the train conductor, strode between compartments with perfect balance. Though she hardly ever practiced her Tai Chi anymore, she'd hung on to a few tricks like this, of being mindful of her core and sensing a kind of rootedness in her legs and feet that kept her steady. Ducking through the sliding doors, she grabbed the elbow of a tottering teenage girl who almost sprawled onto the floor, clinging to a phone as if that might save her. Oh my God, the girl muttered as she scrambled for a seat. Thanks. Teresa smiled. Best to stay seated. May I see your ticket, please? In the last two compartments towards the front of the train, it was oddly empty. A sense of unease began to creep under Teresa's skin, beginning in her stomach and spreading like poison through her cheeks, like a blush, only cold, sickly. The hollow sound of her footsteps sounded lonely against the rhythm of the train, and she slowed her pace. The other carriages had been quite full. It was strange to walk through two entirely empty cars, almost as if this atmosphere, a force of unease, had repelled the passengers, who stayed away by some instinct. Teresa chuckled to herself. The closeness of Halloween and the book of horror stories she'd been reading lately, to get into the mood for a party her flatmate had arranged, had got her imagination working overtime. But her giggle faded, sounding false under the feeble, artificial lights. Teresa glanced through the window. The sun was on its way down. It was always a little creepy when they passed by these wind-torn stretches of moor. The lights flickered, and she was struck, not for the first time, by the thick, almost round tussocks poking through the landscape, and the way the long grasses shuddered, streaming out against the wind, like the heads of malformed giants pushing their way up from under the ground. The lights came on fully again. There was some sort of electrical fault whenever they passed through this area. Old systems, that was all. And the illusion disappeared. The moor was just a moor. Teresa shook her head. This was all so utterly familiar, and yet the bleakness of the place seemed even darker and gloomier after her holiday in the south of France, already fading into a distant memory. Reassuring herself that it had been real, she rubbed her tanned forearms, admiring the warm colour the sun had left on her. She was almost at the driver's cabin when something tall and white to her left slid and thunked against the corner. Teresa gasped. A completely rigid figure was leaning its head against the corner of the train, wrapped in a big white sheet. Its ruler-straight body was propped at an angle, with only its heels on the ground. An ankle glistened pearly white. A croaky voice made Teresa jump and look down. "You've come too far." Her eyes met the withered expression of an old woman, a pale blue warning. "Come too far? On the train?" Silently, Teresa finished for her. But how could she, the train conductor, come too far along the train, and who was this woman to say so? But the idea chimed in the back of her head. It may mean something else. Come too far, as in seen too much. What is this, please? Teresa asked. Oh, it's no use, said the woman. Of course it's time to hand over. The invisibility sheet only works for those who aren't chosen. Her weary eyes found Teresa's again before she slumped to the side in resignation. It was then that Teresa saw the blood trickling from the old woman's stomach. Oh my God, what happened? You need medical assistance. Teresa began fumbling for her phone. Stupid. What she needed to do was go to one of the train's intercoms to alert the driver and call for help. But a wrinkled hand grasped Teresa's wrist with surprising strength. There will be no need to tell anyone about me or this thing I have with me. That would endanger more lives than you can imagine. The train lurched to one side and the sheeted figure jerked forward. Hands tore from under the sheet, which slipped aside to reveal a hard marble-like skin. Teresa froze in disbelief, then pulled away just in time to miss the swipe of those clawed fingers. Surely she was hallucinating. This was a thing that belonged in a museum, a statue made from precious stone or crystal. A groan escaped from the rigid figure as tiny eyes cracked open and a mouth formed in the half-moon swirls and veins of the crystalline skin. Resolve hardened in Teresa's stomach. She threw out a hand to stop the creature, and it flinched away, whether at the suddenness of her movement or the intention behind it. Teresa couldn't be sure. That thing couldn't feel fear. The touch of that cold, hard torso, the inhuman solidity, sent shockwaves of horror right down to Teresa's feet. Her feet. Keep your centre of balance, she reminded herself, calling up memories from old Tai Chi lessons, half buried under years of office jobs, and then this train conductor role. All of her life energy came into focus. Both the pettiness of these jobs, these efforts to fit in, and the deep, vital urge to survive, which surpassed the banality of such a life. Even now, poised in front of this impossible creature, ready to strike, the paradox of her own life flashed through Teresa as if her memories were liquid in her veins, as if resolve pulsed in the very air she breathed, and that ancient desire for the supernatural, from reading comic books as a child to her love of short horror stories these days, spun in her mind like a rare metaphysical coin that now flipped itself over to reveal what it really was underneath. A kind of readiness for this. All this rushed through her as she prepared to strike again, and the crystalline zombie hesitated as if assessing her with its beady, calculating eye. The old woman muttered from her seat, "You can break it. Don't worry about that. I've done it enough times. The parts will remake themselves under the moon. It's the way it always happens. Please, just be careful with the sharp bits. Don't let it get a taste of your blood." Teresa snatched a wild glance at the woman. Just then the creature fell on her, a hard and heavy shape, and Teresa found herself pulling up an energy from the tips of her toes that wrenched itself out of her in a roar. At the same time, she pummeled her hand into its neck, then its arms. Cracks snapped, shocking Teresa out of her instinctual rage, and she stepped back, staring. The thing lay in pieces on the floor. The old woman moaned as she leaned forwards, pointing to the side. "The sports bag. You'll need to put the pieces in there, but wrap 'em up first and be careful of the sharps." Numbed, Teresa worked quickly over the pieces, piling them up and wrapping them as best she could into the sports bag. The old woman talked on, though by the edge in her voice and the shortness of her breath, it cost her. "Will you take this to the Wentville Village Museum? They will know what to do with it. They're waiting for me there." Teresa said nothing, just pressed her lips against the utter horror and insanity of what she was doing, these huge chunks of marble limbs protruding from the bag until she shoved them down. Only when she slid the zip along the full length of the bag did she notice that the train had stopped and the driver's cabin door had opened. "I heard some commotion out here. Is everything—" He gasped and swore at the sight of the old woman keeled over in her seat. "What are you doing? Why the hell didn't you call me and stop the train?" "I only just found her like this. I saw we were pulling into the station." "Is she—" Teresa turned and knelt closer to the woman, pressing her fingers to her throat. "Yes, she's dead." The driver shifted uncomfortably from one foot to the other. "Great, and now everyone's just got off the train. Whoever did this to her will be long gone." "Long gone, yes," thought Teresa, "but not in the way you're thinking, and closer than you think. Is that her bag?" "No, it's mine. I was thinking of stopping off here, spending a couple of days. Old school friend of mine lives nearby." Teresa used the excuse of looking down at the poor dead woman to avoid making eye contact. There was no school friend. There was only this secret and a kind of duty she felt towards the old woman. As the driver turned away, muttering expletives while he clumsily dialed numbers on his intercom, Teresa noticed the blood on her arm. A fresh scratch. Something in the sports bag squirmed, restless. What had the old woman said about not letting it taste your blood? But the thing hadn't tasted it as such. Did this count? Was she safe? Teresa stood up, her heart fluttering like a caged bird, as the driver stomped back out again, running his hands through his now wild hair. "They're on their way." Teresa couldn't hear the rest of what he said. She had only one goal now: to fulfil her promise to the dead woman she'd just met and deliver the creature to Wentvale Village Museum. But would her duty end there? The blood on her arm. It was just a scratch, but it was enough. She was connected now to this thing and tethered to its fate. And that's how the overcooked train conductor covers up the crystalline zombie. Overcooked as in overcooked imagination? I think she could leave that one to me. Hopefully to you as well. Well, thank you to everyone who sent words through my play page. It seems as though the Socks of Destiny have found their fates, which were indelibly entwined with Halloween ideas, it seems. Of course, these sorts of synchronicities often happen when you play the mysterious game of Exquisite Corpse. But is it a case of discovering or making these connections happen? I'd like to think it's a little blend of the two. Because if you're going to write about magic, you might as well believe in magic, just a little bit, at least for the time while you're dabbling with it. But what writing prompts should I invite you to have a think about? The hexed bride? Or the petulant glass of wine which possibly hexes her? Or a delicious factory that leaks, smells, tastes, and enchantment? Actually, I think I'd like to hear what you have to say about the crystalline zombie. Get in touch if you have an idea you'd like to share on the show. Just hit the contact button on any page at annatizard.com and let me know. Well, I hope you enjoyed the slightly crazy Halloween stories today. Please do tune in again and tell a friend. Please share the show with others so they can discover it too and join the craziness. We all need a bit of weirdness and imagination yoga in our lives. Well, on that note, until next time, go forth and be inspired. I hope you enjoyed today's Brainstoryum. You can find out more about Exquisite Corpse and my series, The Book of Exquisite Corpse, at annatizard.com. Subscribe to my e-newsletter and you'll get Volume 1 for free. And while you're there, why not submit a few words to the Socks of Destiny on my play page? You may inspire me or inspire yourself to write a unique new story. See you next time.